A warning to Canadian parents from Norway. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. Could Canadian parents soon face having their children taken away? Could they soon face jail time? If we look to Norway as an example, that could happen. That country has long banned any form of corporal punishment, and now two parents have watched as their 5 children have been taken away, all because they say they didn't realize how strict and complete the ban on spanking was in their country. Speaking of Ruth and Marius, a couple recently profiled on the BBC and other international news media, their children, 2 daughters aged 10 and 8, 2 boys aged 5 and 2, and a 3-month-old baby boy as well, all taken away, starting last November, because someone informed the authorities that they engaged in corporal punishment. Ruth says it was only once in a while, not every time the children did anything bad. There's been no signs of abuse. There's been no signs of marks being left on the children. We're talking about spanking, something that Canadian parents across the country already use as a tool in their belt. It's not a tool for every parent. It's not something every parent uses, and it is definitely not the same thing as beating or abusing children. But now there's a push on to ban spanking once again. I'm not just talking about private members' bills from the Senate, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised that he would follow through on every call to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Committee report. And that included a call for banning corporal punishment for teachers, but also for parents. I want to make it clear, I'm someone who has used and advocated spanking in the past. Again, not for every child and not in every situation, but it is something that can be used. But a ban on spanking would change that. It would say that relations between adults and children have to be the same as between 2 adults. If you don't believe me, speak to the activists. I have interviewed them in the past, and this is their push. So corporal punishment, revoking that would include everything from spanking to picking up your child who's throwing a temper tantrum in the middle of the supermarket to take them out to the car. I couldn't do that to you as an adult. I couldn't strap you into the minivan and say you're going to sit there until you calm down, so I wouldn't be allowed to do that to my child. Is this where we want to go with parenting in Canada? Do we want to get to the point where instead of arresting people for abusing or taking children away that are being abused, we're taking away children to get a slight tap on the hand before they touch something hot or a slight tap on the bottom? Because those are the rules in Canada. The Supreme Court has been very strict. You can't spank a child under 2. You can't spank a child over the age of 12. You can't hit them in the head. It can't be with severe force. It is laid out clearly. This has been ruled on by both Parliament and the courts, and it's been allowed. But soon it may not be. And the story of Ruth and Marius in Norway, their 5 children being taken away because they didn't realize they'd broken the law, even though they weren't abusing their children, this should serve as a warning sign. I can't begin to comprehend the abuse that took place in many of the residential schools across the country, and I can understand those who suffered abuse wanting to say they need to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. But spanking and abuse are 2 different things. Used properly, spanking can teach children who cannot understand words, that cannot understand reason, how to behave. I always think to my youngest son and his penchant for running into the road. Well, talking to him and telling him over and over again that a truck would run him over, that's not something he understood when he was 3 years old. He would laugh. He would think it was hysterical. He imagined a cartoon-type setting. Once I told him that I would spank his bum if he ran out in the road in front of trucks again. He stopped doing it because he couldn't understand death. He couldn't understand being run over by a truck, but he could understand a quick swat on the bum, and he knew he didn't want that. I'm not exaggerating when I say if it weren't for the fact that I was able to spank this boy, I'm not sure he would be alive. That's how often he thought it was funny to run out into the road in front of moving traffic. We need to make sure that children are protected, but we also need to make sure that we aren't turning families against each other and we aren't turning parents into criminals. As Justin Trudeau moves to implement the promises he's made to those in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, parents need to speak up to make sure that families are not going to end up being targeted, that they won't be ripped apart the way it's currently happening in Norway.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.